I think the beheading of the Sunni people who were all said to be Al Qaeda, who really knows, I think that was a very powerful internal signal the Saudi government was sending to its own people more than anyone else. It was telling all these young jihadis, the young Saudis who were part of all this, back off because we're not afraid to get you guys too. I don't know how far that extended outside of Saudi's borders. I mean, their intention, at least. Though, again, these are tough kind of questions to parse out. What was the Saudi king personally thinking when he signed off on this? It's a tough.
Well, I don't think it has anything to do with the soul of Sunni Islam. I think it's more just like Peter was saying. It was a show of strength because for the past year, the so-called Islamic State looked like they owned the entire fucking Middle East. Like, beyond the Levant, they owned it all. And they had the whole world scared of them. So I think that Peter's right, that was a message for people in Saudi Arabia where brutality is equated with strength. Thankfully, not like here in America. We're beyond such things, he says sarcastically. But I think that's what it was. I think it was just a show of strength. I'm sorry, Eric.
Well, I was just going to mention, like, we talk about how we accept that Saudi Arabia is brutal and something that should be normal for them. But I think it's ultra hypocritical. In no way am I defending ISIS, but I mean, like, when they do it, it's bad. But when the Saudis do it, it's a show of strength and something that we have to accept. And I think it's pretty disgusting when we come to terms and allow that kind of thing to happen, but reject it elsewhere. It makes me question the entire.
Well, I don't think it's for our benefit, Eric. I think it's for again, the people there. They, again, it's a, to us, bribery and corruption of public officials is all too common, but also something that's untenable. Whereas in Middle Eastern cultures, at least in Iraq, it was part of everyday life. Like, the bribe, you bribed people just to get, like going to the DMV. The bribe was part of the process. So there are certain things in the culture which, it's a harsh land, and it's a harsh, and the punishments are harsh. That's what they're doing. They're trying to say that, we're not.
But
I don't think it's supposed to be like better. I think it's still just pretty much despicable. I don't think, but
we
what do you?
Examine who we buddy up with in the Middle East? Yeah,
If we don't have the Saudis, who do we have? The Kurds. I mean, the Peshmerga's badass, but they ain't that badass.
Well, I mean,
I understand where you're coming from, but is it time to re-examine how we approach our foreign policy there? Because, quite frankly, we are obviously supporting a place that, and I'm going to put it bluntly, a complete shithole. Like, I call Saudi Arabia.
That's the technical term.
It is not a bastion of human rights. It's a complete shithole, just like Qatar, and just like nearby surrounding areas. There's nothing good to pull out of there that we can sit here in the West and say, oh, we're learning lessons. No, these places mistreat their people, and it's terrible.
Well, first, America has a very, very long history of supporting evil, crappy people. All through Central America, we have supported one scumbag, evil dictator after another who did terrible things to his people. We supported the Shah in Iran for a very long time. So, I mean,
and don't forget Guatemala.
Guatemala, Vietnam. I mean, we can go around the globe. So, I mean, I don't want to sound flip and say there's nothing new, but in fact, there is nothing new.
No, I know.
Second, the United States government are hypocritical bastards for not condemning the Saudis for doing exactly the same thing that ISIS is doing. Beheading is beheading. And the ISIS beheads based on Sharia law, and so does Saudi Arabia. I think we actually did a piece on Latest.com comparing the two organizations and how they handle things like treatment of women and stuff like that. You have to, but there is a political position, I don't know what to call it, where you try to zoom out and say, well, geopolitically, how are these things working or not?
Right.
The Vietnam went into villages and cut off the ears of children. Was that, in fact, an effective tool to control the population or not? And because it often happens in conflict, you push the issue of morality off to the side I don't think that's a good thing, and I think a good reading of history suggests it always backfires. Go back
How
to your
long do we do
Thucydides.
that before we need to step in and say, okay, let's change a little bit?
Oh God, hope never. I mean, here's the thing about because again, it gets into this sort of the U.S.'s ability to stick its nose where it's not wanted, nor that it belongs. For us, the choice is not how do we fix Saudi Arabia for her people.
No, of course.
It's how do we, the question is, if we cut off the Saudi monarchy, that would leave us no friends in the Middle East except maybe Jordan and Israel. So who's better, Saudi Arabia, the Saudi monarchy, or the so-called Islamic State? Obviously the monarchy, because they don't want to bring about the apocalypse just yet. And I think that's sort of the other side of this discussion that we often get shit on for Americans for backing what other choice is there? The broad call for coalitions of Sunni Arab troops. I mean, it's a problem if they're led by guys like al-Assad or the monarchy, because to the people on the ground there, well, that's an oppressive-ass dictator who would want to fight for them too. You know what I mean? But ultimately, they have to make the same decision we do, which is the lesser of two evils. So I agree that the beheadings and the Sharia law stuff, it's stupid, it's bad, it's undemocratic, and it's nothing that America should be proud of or accept.
Or anybody in the world, not just about
Yeah,
America.
but again, looking at the situation on the ground, it's Saudi or nobody, and we need to have some friends. And I mean,
is it time to take Iran out for beers, maybe?
Yeah, you know what? I honestly, it seems I wouldn't be surprised if that was what was mostly behind this deal, is that they recognize that maybe Iran is the better ally than the monarchy.
Let's not kid ourselves. I mean, before we stepped in and kind of screwed Iran up, they were heading in a good direction.
See, the thing is, I think we're past the question of friends or allies. I think the Middle East is far too complex to try to reduce it to something binary like that. This country's our friend, that country's not our friend. Ally, foe. The United States has really a tiny handful of interests left in the Middle East. The first one is to contain terrorism there, and that can be done. First of all, by stopping giving terrorists a motive to go out and do things. It's hard to recruit jihadis to strike the United States when the United States is like, we're not paying, we don't have any troops anymore there. Second, and this is the other one is the United States' main interest in the Middle East is some version of stability. Stability keeps the oil flowing. Stability keeps a cap on terrorism. Stability is the magic word. And what we've been doing for quite a long time, you can tag it back into whatever, the 90s, you can tag it back into 9/11, is we've been doing stuff that's kind of counter-stabilizing. The war, the second invasion of, the first invasion of Iraq after they invaded Kuwait was all about stability. The goal was to return things to the status quo. And that's what we did. We kept the Iraqis out of Saudi Arabia. We pushed them back out of Kuwait. And then we abandoned the Shias and we abandoned the Kurds because their fate had nothing to do with broader stability in the Middle East. What we did in 2003 is take a huge dump on stability by removing a giant stable thing, Iraq. And then everything, fell apart. So I wonder how many friends we need. I wonder how many allies we need. I think what we probably need is what we're going to evolve with Iran, which is a way of kind of getting along that is some good, some bad, but relatively stable, something you could at least count on in the near to midterm.
It's like when Godzilla and Rodan team up to fight a third monster. They're not actually pals, but they work together. We're like, I won't destroy you, I'm gonna go back in my little hole. I'll go back in the ocean.
Russia and the U.S. in World War II.
Yeah, I mean, is Iran Mothra or where do you see?
I feel like Saudi Arabia is more Mothra. Iran, the whole nuclear thing.
Yeah, no, I get that. Good.
All right, well, let's wrap up this. Let's wrap up this edition of Four White Guys Solve the Middle East using movie references.
Don't forget the zombie reference.
And the zombie reference.
It's true.
See you next week. Thanks for joining us. Keep reading Latest.com.